then that battery pack, you need to charge your battery, recharge your battery, which is connected to some sort of motor, and that is connected to your wheels. So that is the powertrain. Forget about one. You have this entire category of drones which cannot do vertical landing and takeoff. And then you, with help of technologies like recombinant DNA technology or gene editing technology, many tech companies did not like it, but European Parliament has made a law. They cannot do anything about it. And US, for example, is blocking any companies which is allowing sophisticated chips to be developed by China. And US का खुद का अपना जो tariff war चल रहा है China से, and how China has retaliated because China controls the global supply. Hello, good evening everyone. This discussion already has went on for a few hours now, so I will not take a lot of time. I'm very sure that you all have seen the paper in detail, and just few lines. I do not agree with any sort of assessment who says that moderate to difficult. This was a difficult paper. It was not a moderate to difficult paper, and I also do not see that how this paper is similar to what was asked last year. Last year was a tough paper. This is tougher for me, at least. The only part which was easy was perhaps ancient medieval history overall. But rest of the topics, including some of the polity is not very straightforward, economy is not very straightforward, environment is very difficult, science and tech is very difficult, right? So geography is very difficult. So all of the traditional topics which are supposed to be analytical and attemptable, and UPSC has gone into a lot of factual details of things. So it was not at all an easy paper. So any such assessment which says otherwise, I will not agree to that. Many questions from science and technology, so I'm going to spend some time. But few themes are, UPSC has picked few themes in last few years and they have continued with that. So I'm going to show you that. So anyways, without going into a lot of other details, let's directly jump into the discussion. I think I have 14 questions, and I always ask students that even in environment, read the technology part. So look at this year also, that you have at least 2-3 questions from environmental technology, the technological solution to fight environmental problem. But anyways, and the way they have framed question, I feel like that there was some sadistic element in at least in this question. For example, this is such a simple question, but look at the word powertrain. And I'm very sure that when you do this at the hindsight benefit, and you see that this is such a simple statement. But think about the aspirants, and I'm very sure some of you perhaps appeared, and you are in the examination hall and you are coming across this word powertrain and you are thinking that what the hell is that? Powertrain vehicle, is this some special type of vehicle? The answer is no, it is not. It is any other vehicle which simply is utilizing some stored energy into some kinetic energy. Powertrain simply means that I have some stored energy mechanism, and due to some mechanism, burning for example, one of that can be, that stored energy is providing the necessary kinetic energy to my vehicle. So all vehicles are powertrain vehicles. Once you know that, then you know that answer will be all of the three. Because then the question is only and only about that which of the energy sources are alternative energy sources. And anything which is not fossil fuel is alternative energy sources, right? But to come to this conclusion that this question is only and only about alternative energy sources is not going to be easy because of the words they have used, right? So with the benefit of hindsight and looking back at the question, it is easy to say that ye easy hai, but I don't think ye bhi easy hai, the way it has been framed. So alternative energy ka simple sa definition, ek line ka definition ye hota hai that anything which is not fossil fuel, and fossil fuel includes coal, fossil fuel includes petrol, diesel, natural gas. So anything which is not fossil fuel is alternative source of energy. So then you ask full battery electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and fuel cell electric hybrid vehicles. All three of them are example of alternative powertrain vehicles. So powertrain is different. For example, in case of this is all electric vehicle, that you have battery pack here, and then that battery pack you need to charge your battery, recharge your battery, which is connected to some sort of motor, and that is connected to your wheel. So that is the powertrain. That motor is the powertrain which is providing the necessary kinetic energy for your vehicle to move, right? So sorry. Tata Nexon, for example, will be an example of all electric vehicle. Hydrogen fuel cell. Now, fuel cell, I often say this in class that fuel cell is a battery, but also not a battery. That in the sense that fuel cells require, if I look at the internal design of fuel cell, I will find a cathode and anode and a membrane. But it is not like a battery that you cannot recharge it. You need to have a tank which has to carry, for example, in this case, hydrogen. So I need to have a hydrogen tank, and that H2 is reacting with O2, which you do not have to carry because there is enough O2 in the atmosphere, and the byproduct is H2O. So you only and only release H2O. So this is hydrogen fuel cell, and this is a vehicle by Toyota, which was launched, I think, last year. And that will be a very good example of fully functional hydrogen fuel cell, which already is available in the market. Although in India, hydrogen ecosystem is not very well established, so you'll not find this vehicle or overall hydrogen pumps a lot in India. And the third statement, fuel cell electric hybrid vehicle. So when we think of hybrid vehicles right now, we often think of an internal combustion engine run on petrol, gasoline, and then that is charging some sort of electric motor which is helping the vehicle. So अगर ये statement normal hybrid vehicle रहता, then it will not come under alternative powertrain vehicle, because normal hybrid vehicles जो अभी हैं, जैसे for example again Toyota has a vehicle I think high cross. So that is an example of hybrid car, but that is a petrol run car. So it does have a motor, and to charge that motor I need to burn petrol, and petrol is not an example of alternative fuel. So look at the option that this is hybrid, but it is fuel cell, so it can run on hydrogen, but I also have, let's say, some arrangement, a small lithium ion battery also. So I have battery and I have fuel cell. And to be very honest with you, mostly it is in conceptual stage. You do have few examples of that, but mostly it is in conceptual stage. Jaise, a very good example is Hyundai, which last year talked about launching such type of hybrid vehicle, which will run both on fuel cell as well as electric vehicle. So answer here is all of the above, but the way this question has been asked, it does not make this question very easy. People have thought about that UPSC will ask question on electric vehicle for many years, and now they have not one but two questions. In fact, there is one more question related to this concept. And look at the last to last year mains examination also, that the adoption of electric vehicles is rapidly growing worldwide. And look at this part also, what are the key benefits they offer compared to traditional combustion engine vehicles. So you realize that similar type of theme is getting repeated by UPSC, and you have to see both prelims and mains examination together in identifying such type of themes, right? So here answer is simply all of the above, right? C will be the correct answer. This question, again, when I say this question outside the examination hall, I would say that this is not that very difficult. But in the examination hall, you'll always have this doubt. With reference to unmanned aerial vehicles, consider the following statement. All types of UAVs can do vertical landing. अब इस टाइप के जब भी statement हो ना, you should always think that even if I find one exception, then that statement is wrong. Same thing in the second statement. All types of UAVs can do automated hovering. I hope this lot of people should have gotten it correct, but because we know the fact that a lot of drones will require some drone operator. So ये तो आपने देखा है कि बहुत सारे लोग drone operate करते हैं, and automated hovering जो है ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हर drone में available हो. And third, all types of UAVs can use battery only as a source of power supply. Again, same thing. अब यहाँ पे अगर आप overthinking करोगे, yes, I was having a discussion with my friend, and he said that think of a statement that कोई भी अगर solar panel powered भी है, तो solar panel तो power तो पहले एक battery को ही करेगा. That a solar panel will provide electricity to a battery which will be charged, and then it is going to help in operation of a drone. ये overthinking नहीं करना है. UPSC इस तरीके के questions इस type के technical details में नहीं जाते. इस statement का simple सा meaning ये है that can it operate apart from, can it have some other source of energy compared to, let's say, some stored chemical, electrochemical battery there? And the answer is yes, I can have solar panel based UAVs, and which by the way have been in news recently, and that is why this question has been asked. But first still is not a very easy statement, that you may think, because the typical drones which you are accustomed to see, for example during weddings में आजकल बहुत use होता है, so all of those drones will be an example of vertical landing drones. But drones can be divided mainly into two parts. You have fixed wing drones and you have rotatory wing drones. And rotatory wing drones, they can do automated hovering and they can also do vertical landing and takeoff. But that will not be true for fixed wing drones. Fixed wing drones will require some sort of runway, right? So forget about one, you have this entire category of drones which cannot do vertical landing and takeoff. So that is why even first statement is wrong, second statement is wrong, and third statement, by the way, this is a news I have given the link. Hindu had also covered it, that IIT Kanpur had developed a solar power drone, that you can see that you have solar panels on the top, and these solar panels are going to power this particular drone. So even third statement is wrong, answer should be none of the above. So while in the first question all three, here the answer should be D, none of the above. This is a difficult question, not at all easy, even though the concept in itself is easy, but the question is difficult because question is not asking you the definition of cathode and anode and electrolyte. Question is asking that what can be used as cathode in this case, right? So this is, if you have to know the fundamentals of battery. And this is another example, a question on electric vehicle. We just saw the very first question that was also on vehicles. In the context of electric vehicle batteries, which mostly are lithium ion batteries by the way, consider the following statements: cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel. How many of the above usually make up battery cathodes? And the answer is only 3. One of my junior from my college who sent me a message that सर एक दोस्त है स्टार्टअप है वो ग्राफाइट बेस्ड जो है कैथोड बना रहा है, तो आंसर इसका ऑल 4 तो नहीं होगा, नहीं होगा, तब भी नहीं होगा. दैट ग्राफाइट, पर्टिकुलरली ग्राफाइट बेस्ड एनोड बनाना वर्सेस ग्राफाइट बेस्ड एनोड जो कि ऑलरेडी इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स में यूज कर रहे हैं, आर 2 वेरी डिफरेंट थिंग. आंसर विल बी only 3 here. Graphite will not be correct. So anyways, a very basic idea about cathode and anode, which you already have learned, by the way, this is something which you learn in your school days, that जितने भी ऐसे electrochemical batteries होंगे, they do what we call redox reaction, reduction reaction and oxidation reaction. Oxidation reaction simply means that whenever something is losing electrons, I call that reaction oxidation reaction. And whenever something is gaining electrons, I call that reaction reduction reaction. So when I think of a anode and a cathode, you are very simple. So at cathode you have reduction happens, and cathodes are acceptor of electrons. And anodes where oxidation happens, these are donors of electrons. And then you have electrolyte, which allows some sort of charged particles to move through, but generally electrons are forced to move through some sort of external circuit, and now that flow of electron is used to do some useful work. For example, let's say lighting a bulb. So this is the typical setup for any battery, that I need a cathode, I need an anode, and I need a electrolyte. So when you look at the examples of cathode and anode, cathode should have high redox potential. So cathode should be able to receive electron. It should be stable, so that even despite repeated charging and discharging, the material is not getting degraded. It should be chemically compatible with electrolyte, which means that it should not react and become something else itself. And when we talk about electric vehicle, then electric vehicles generally use lithium ion battery, and uska ek simple sa karan ye hai that lithium as an element has this very high tendency of losing electron. It has 3 electrons, 2 of them are in a very stable structure, but the third electron is in its outermost shell and it wants to lose that. So when you make lithium in some sort of compound form, for example lithium cobalt oxide or lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide or lithium nickel cobalt aluminium oxide, then you use this as a cathode. Lithium metal in itself has used as an anode. This is very interesting, that when I look at good anode, you have graphite, that's a very good example of good anode. Graphite, it's stable, it can give up electrons. Silicon and even lithium metal. Remember, lithium as an element has this tendency to giving up its electron. It wants to lose its electron as much as possible. But does that mean lithium is not correct here? Not at all, because lithium metal is used as an anode, but lithium in a molecular form, such as lithium cobalt oxide or nickel manganese cobalt oxide, is used as a good cathode. So lithium is correct, and look at the other options. Cobalt is correct and nickel is correct. So 1, 3 and 4 are correct here. Graphite is not correct. Graphite is not used as a cathode. Graphite is used as a anode in electric vehicle. Answer here will be only 3. It is not at all an easy question. This is a difficult question. Knowing specifically about all of them, and ऐसा भी नहीं है कि 1 only and 2 and 3 and 4 only है. You have to know about all of them separately. Only then you can answer it. Okay, but आप ऐसे सोचो कि ग्राफाइट जो है कार्बन है, कार्बन हैज 4 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स इन इट्स आउटर मोस्ट शेल. ये ले भी सकता है, दे भी सकता है. नहीं, बट पॉइंट ये है कि अगर आपने, बिल्कुल आप सही बोल रहे हो कि चार्ज के बेसिस पे आप कर रहे हो, बट फिर कार्बन को कैसे आप जस्टिफाई करोगे? कार्बन, ग्राफाइट इंडीड कैन एक्ट एज बोथ कैथोड एंड एनोड. It's just that as a cathode it is not going to be very stable. Particularly at very high voltage, it is not very stable. So because of that, and electric vehicles, they do operate at very high voltage. So we are not going to use graphite as a cathode, right? So I agree to what you are saying, but फिर भी थोड़ा सा इस logic में एक flaw है. That graphite indeed can be used both as cathode and anode. It's just that in electric vehicles we will not use it because at such very high voltage, it is not going to be very stable. Okay. सही है, only 3 करा था मार्क. ठीक है, perfect. This is what I meant when I said. So lithium ion battery will have anode often as a graphite, and cathode, for example, can be lithium cobalt oxide. So this will be a typical internal arrangement of lithium ion battery. Science tech में factual question कम आते हैं, but ये एक example है factual question का. और ऐसे क्वेश्चंस का सिंपल सा थंब रूल, आई ऑफन से दिस टू स्टूडेंट्स, दैट द ओनली गुड थिंग अबाउट दिस क्वेश्चन इज द 3 things आर गिवन एंड आई जस्ट हैव टू नो वन, एंड इफ आई नो वन then I know my answer. But if I do not know even one, then I skip this question. Why should I take any type of risk here? When I read this, कोई भी hint मिल रहा है कि क्या हो सकता है? I don't think कोई भी hint मिल रहा है. So this is a question. Even if you, let's say, for example, you took some random tukka and you got it correct, even then you should not celebrate that. That it was just a fluke and which became correct. So answer here is military weapons, explosive in military weapons. And however, I could at least found for first 2 some reference in newspaper article. But वहीं की newspaper article में भी इतने detail में एक specific chemical कौन पढ़ता है इतने detail में? So this is a difficult question for me. And ideally, if I were to attempt this, then I will not attempt this question because this is very factual. I do not know any of them and I will skip this question. So I will give you the link. I have given the link here. I could find one link from June 2024. Cl20. This is has better oxidizer to fuel ratio than conventional RDX. Releases 20% more energy than traditional HMX based repellent. So I could find some reference within last 1 year, and HMX again was in news because this time it was in news for a very interesting reason, that Russia-Ukraine war में आपने पढ़ा होगा कि that pipeline which was blasted and nobody says that who has done it, so that US has done it. So but anyways, so यहाँ पे जो आंसर है वो ये करंट अफेयर्स में पिछले साल में था, बट ये बहुत ही स्पेसिफिक न्यूज़पेपर आर्टिकल है एंड इसमें स्पेसिफिक मॉलिक्यूल्स के बारे में इतना याद रखना पॉसिबल नहीं है. सो दिस इज़ अ डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन, दिस इज़ अ फैक्चुअल क्वेश्चन, एंड इफ यू डू फाइंड सच क्वेश्चंस इन फ्यूचर एग्जामिनेशन, do not try to attempt it. And even if you do get it correct in test series or even in UPSC, do not celebrate that. Remember, it was a fluke. So anyways, this was very much in news. This was expected. Quantum computing was asked 2 years ago or 3 years ago. This is a question asked by UPSC in prelims. The term qubit. and I often say this to class, that ye UPSC दोबारा अब नहीं पूछेगी. What they will ask is that what are the latest developments in quantum computing. And when you read quantum computing in detail, and then you realize that the biggest challenge in quantum computing is that qubits are very sensitive and they are not very good in processing information for very, very long. We use a term for it, it is called quantum decoherence. The traditional quantum bits, they decohere very rapidly, and as a result, your computation is going to be prone to huge amount of error. And in this context, this first news, this was a global news, by the way. It's not just that only Hindu covered it or Express covered it. This was covered all across the world. Majorana one chip will enable quantum computing. Majorana was a great theoretical physicist who lived in 1930s. And he was, for example, contemporary of Paul Dirac, one of the other great scientists in quantum mechanics. So Paul Dirac, for example, talks about the concept of antiparticle. Theoretically, he proved that there should be something called antiparticle. वो खुद में एक separate discussion है. Majorana, and by the way, he was proven to be correct, that his calculations are correct, that antiparticles indeed do exist. That was one of the greatest success of theoretical physics, that somebody developed mathematics and then it was known to exist. And Majorana then went on to say that there should be few particles who are their own antiparticles. And we call them Majorana nodes. Majorana one day disappeared. Like literally he just disappeared and nobody knows what happened to him. So as a scientist, he was quite young and something happened clearly. But Majorana, even though his mathematics is correct, but people have never found Majorana node particles which are their own antiparticles in nature. But there was an announcement by Microsoft that, and this is a very technical line, that in a topological superconducting material, they have found Majorana node. Now what is topological state? Topological state, when we use this term in physics, it simply means that there are certain properties which are not going to suffer even if system is undergoing some sort of distortion. That certain properties will not suffer. So turns out that you can have a topological state at very, very low temperature, and in that topological state, the scientists of Microsoft claimed that they have found Majorana nodes, which can be now used to design a qubit. Even knowing this, I remember taking this class in PT365, and I remember one of the curious students, and that was a very valid question, that sir, please explain this topological superconducting state. And I said that remember that it is Majorana node which is going to help in qubit, and it has been developed by Microsoft. Although just within 2-3 weeks, many scientists have highlighted that the claim might not be actually correct. Like everything which is being claimed by Microsoft might not be correct. Second is not correct, not by Microsoft, not by Amazon, but by Microsoft. And वहाँ से answer आ गया हमारा 1 and 3. But third statement is a simple statement. Deep learning as a branch of artificial intelligence, this is subset of machine learning. Deep learning takes inspiration from working of human brain. Those interconnected neurons, in case of deep learning, you have interconnected nodes. And machine learning, of course, is a bigger term, and AI, of course, is a much bigger term. So deep learning was in news n number of time for n number of reasons. I will not go into that. But Majorana, this was, ये news भी देख लो आप, ये Feb का news है, Feb 2025 का news है. So this is directly picked from current affairs. And headline में दे रखा है that Microsoft's new quantum chip may consist of particles with unusual properties that physicists believe could be used to build qubits that are less error prone. So you do not even have to read the entire article. Even just the main summary is more than enough to answer this question. So because this was so prominently covered, I would say that this is not as difficult as the previous questions I have discussed here. Answer here will be 1 and 3 only. I've been teaching this for last 3 years now. Monoclonal antibodies. And finally, तो ये भी देख लिया हमने एक pattern. UPSC अब पिछले साल भर के current affairs से बिल्कुल भी bound नहीं है. They're asking current affairs which is 2 years old, or even 3 years old in some cases. But monoclonal antibodies, and first and second is easy, but third particularly is an old news. It's not a very recent news. Antibodies are proteins which we make in our own. For example, you have been infected, there is some bacteria, some virus, anything. The body is fighting off that infection. And to do that, it has to correctly identify the antigen and it has to produce specific type of antibodies. That is the job of B cells and T cells. वो भी question पूछा था UPSC ने कुछ साल पहले, that what are the functions of B cells and T cells. But people whose immune system is not working really well, right? Their body is not able to produce the antibody to fight off the infection. And this is where one of the interesting application of biotechnology is that we can isolate the genes responsible for production of that particular protein. And then we, with help of technologies like recombinant DNA technology or gene editing technology, we can produce that same antibody into an industrial setup, into lab condition. And that antibody can be given to patients who are suffering from the disease and they are not able to fight it off. So this is called monoclonal antibody. Mono here signifies that the antibody is specifically designed for one type of antigen, right? So first, they are man-made proteins, yes. Your body is not producing, you are producing this, you are making this into a lab setup. They stimulate immunological function due to their ability to bind to specific antigen, yes, that is the meaning of the word mono. But third statement makes it difficult. First and second, even though is very popular, but third statement makes it this a difficult question. अगर ये सिर्फ दो statement रहता तो फिर भी मैं बोलता कि ठीक है, this is a medium level or easy question. They are used in treating viral infections like that of Nipah virus. अब ये बहुत ही specific इसलिए है, because Nipah virus का as such कोई established prescribed treatment है नहीं available. You often find cases of Nipah virus, for example, Kerala sometimes remains in news because of cases of Nipah virus. And there was a news that Indian government had requested Australian government to import some monoclonal antibodies as a compassionate treatment. अब इसका क्या meaning है? इसका meaning ये है that ये treatment approved नहीं है. WHO ने या Indian Drug Regulatory Agency ने इसको approve नहीं कर रखा है. That this is a well-established treatment option. It's just that for people who are suffering from severe infection, and the alternative here is that there is a very high chance of death. In such cases, on compassionate ground, we are going to allow monoclonal antibodies for Nipah virus. And this was in news, but it is not a recent news. ये October 17, 2023 का news है. That Nipah virus outbreak, what are monoclonal antibodies? And पूरा आप article पढ़ो, मैंने link दे रखा है यहाँ पे. If you read this entire article, you will find that Indian government has requested Australia to import some monoclonal antibodies on compassionate ground. So that makes even third statement correct, and answer here is 1, 2 and 3. So, but for me again, this is a difficult question for two reasons. पहला तो बहुत ही specific news है और इतना recent news भी नहीं है. ये पुराना current affairs है. Answer here will be D. Out of all questions of science and tech, this perhaps is a easy question. This, and ऐसे question UPSC ने past में भी पूछ रखा है. In fact, let me show you. 2016 में question था. Which of the following virus can infect bacteria, fungi, plant? Answer is all of the above. That you have certain type of viruses, we literally call them bacteriophages or simply phages. That they can infect a virus which can infect a bacteria, we call them bacteriophages. Another question about how virus infects. Adenovirus are single-stranded, or AIDS is caused by retrovirus. So you have specific type of questions on virus asked in PYQ also. So if you have done PYQs well, this is an easy question. No virus can survive in ocean water. That does not make any sense. Viruses are not considered either living or non-living. They will not be able to multiply unless they have infected a living host organism. And many, in fact, oceans are one of the biggest reservoir of viruses. Think about the fact that bacteria, which are the smallest organism considered to be living organism, viruses are not. But in the course of evolution, this virus clearly must have played a very, very important role. And we do know that evolution occurred in ocean. It happened in water. Life started in water. So first statement does not make any sense. No virus can infect bacteria, not at all. You have entirely a group of viruses. In fact, we are exploring this as an option as a replacement to antibiotics. Just think of this entire issue of antimicrobial resistance. That excessive use of antibiotic, it causes antimicrobial resistance. That in itself is a very serious health concern. So how to find alternative solution? And one of that solution is to look for those viruses which can infect a bacteria but are not dangerous for human beings. This was covered by Hindu, in fact. ये January 2024 का news है. This is the article, and look at the pages also that clearly mentioned explore alternative methods like bacteriophage therapy, simply known as phages, are viruses that specifically target and annihilate bacteria. So a current affairs inspired question. And जो एक और statement है, ये तो बिल्कुल ही गलत है. No virus can change the cellular transcriptional activity in host cell. The fact that they can do that makes them such a very powerful infective agent, that they hijack the cellular machinery of host and then they use that cellular machinery to multiply. So third statement is not at all correct. In fact, अगर ये नहीं होता तो बहुत सारे viruses infect ही नहीं कर पाते. So answer here is that first is not correct, second is not correct, third is not correct. Answer is none of the above. So if I have to think of a question which I would say easy to medium, not exactly easy, I will say that this is that question. Answer will be none of the above. ये क्वेश्चन ऐसा है कि जिसको देखते ही आगे बढ़ना चाहिए. It should not even think twice. Because देखो क्वेश्चन इतना आसान है, बचपन में पढ़ रखा था that you have type of plants called herbs and shrubs and creepers and trees and all of that. But remembering about specific example, and even then remembering them only 2, only 3, only 4, that I have to know all of them exactly what they are. So this is a question which you should not even think about, that why should I like get that minus 2 by 3 marks here, and simply look for other question. So the सबसे पहली चीज़ तो ये है that this is a like something which you learn as a child, in fact, that you have different type of plants, and you have, for example, herbs which are very small, and then you have shrubs, and then you have climbers and creepers, and of course you have tree. There are different type of plants. There is a specific definition in botany that how we define this, but you have some idea, even by looking at it, you have some idea that what will be a shrub or what will be a herb and all of that. Cassava, yes, that is correctly mentioned. Cassava, which is native to South America, that is a woody shrub. So that is correct. That you do find, not exactly, you cannot have from wood, you cannot make timber, you cannot make furniture, but you do find that woody branches. So yes. Ginger is a herb, but you can look at this stem-like character, and hence we are saying that it has a pseudo-stem. It's not exactly stem of a tree, but it does have pseudo-stem. And Malabar spinach, that's a very good example of climber. Herbaceous means that it is herb. It has herb-like property, but it is a climber. So these three are correctly given. The fourth option is mint, annual shrub. No, it's a herb. And the fifth option is papaya, woody shrub. So I guess this was the only easy part. That papaya is not woody, we know that. And if you have seen a papaya, you know that this should not be correct. So at least all the 5 to answer nahi hoga. But I still am confused between only 2, only 3 and only 4. So papaya technically is a giant herb. Technically papaya is a giant herb. Mint is a herb and papaya is technically a giant herb. So fourth and fifth, that is not correct. First, second and third are correct. Answer here is only 3. But not at all easy. Question of basic science. This division what you learn as a child, but going into such detailed examples and asking a question like this, this is perhaps one of the most difficult question. Two questions from space technology. One of that is on GAGAN. And GAGAN was started by ISRO even before NAVIC. So NAVIC relies upon our own constellation of satellite, but GAGAN does not rely upon our own constellation of navigational satellite. In fact, it relies upon GPS satellites. That what Government of India has done and what ISRO has done. So ISRO collaborated with Airport Authority of India, and we launched 3 dedicated communication satellites for this program, GSAT 10, 15, 8. And we rely upon the constellation of GPS satellites, which by the way belongs to America. GPS satellites, they provide, all navigational satellites provide 2 types of applications, civilian and military. Civilian mostly is free. So GPS, for example, when we use in our day-to-day life, that is of course free. So the idea here is that even use of that civilian application of GPS, we are going to use that, but with help of powerful data centers, powerful servers, we are going to further rectify and we will try to ensure that GPS का जो error है, उस error को भी हम minimize करें. And then we are going to provide this navigational information for civilian aircraft movement across India and hopefully even in overall Asia. So with this as the central theme, GAGAN was envisaged even before NAVIC. GAGAN was envisaged and implemented even before NAVIC was done. So this is not a question at all from current affairs. This is just a very standard space applications, standard programs of ISRO. So first, it is designed to provide additional accuracy and integrity. Yes, it does that. Second, it will allow more uniform and high quality air traffic management. That was the central objective because of which GAGAN was envisaged by ISRO and Airport Authority of India, which is a government department under Ministry of Civil Aviation. But no longer it is limited to aircraft movement. It is being used for shipping, it is being used for railway. In fact, it is also being used for mapping and forest mapping and road mapping and all of that. So third statement is of course not correct. And वैसे भी जहाँ पे भी ऐसे only वाले statement हो, that it will provide benefits only in the aviation but not in other modes of transportation, not at all. There are not just theoretical that it can be used, it is being used in railway, it is being used in shipping. So third is not correct. Answer is 1 and 2, answer is D here. So this is a question again which I will say that if you even know basics of GAGAN, you can get this answer correct. For me, this is a prime example of that how UPSC is checking the capability of awareness. It's not frankly a question of science and tech. The theme is AI, but question is completely from current affairs. ये बिल्कुल ही current affairs है. इसमें कुछ भी technology कुछ भी नहीं है, science कुछ भी नहीं है. ये frankly global affairs का question ज़्यादा है. Now I will tell you the reason. Many American tech companies have been very critical of all of the rules and regulations Europe is passing. For example, few years ago they passed this law, General Data Protection Law. That जो tech companies हैं, they cannot store data indefinitely. They have to alert to the consumers that for what purpose, for how long they are going to store data. Many tech companies did not like it, but European Parliament has made a law, they cannot do anything about it. So when this summit happened, and by the way, many summits with respect to AI safety has occurred, AI has been continuously in news. When this summit happened, and India was one of the chairs of this summit, it happened in Paris. So look at the entire, first the context of the question. It is also mentioned co-chaired with India, which is correct, and that is why knowing about this in fact becomes even more important, that India was one of the co-chairs of this summit. The event builds on the advances made at the Bletchley, which was a summit which happened in 2023, and Seoul summit which happened in 2024. Completely correct. This did happen. But second, why I'm saying that UPSC is checking your awareness? Because you have to know this background in which US did not agree to sign it. There was a very famous global news that Vice President of US, J.D. Vance, he made a very, very fiery speech against what Europe is doing over-regulation and all of that. And the main reason why US did not sign, because it felt that it will kill its own industry. जो उनके tech companies हैं, they will be affected by it. And the main reason UK did not sign, that it has its own reservation with respect to national security. That for national security applications, there are few aspects of it did not agree to, and hence it did not sign the declaration. So two जो दे रखा है, that US and UK also signed, not at all. In fact, these are the two nations which stood out that among developing nations did not sign this declaration. And this is not a random news. This was globally covered. In fact, European chairman was crying after this, that what has just happened to America? That America has been our such a strong and important ally, and suddenly it is behaving like that. What regime change can do? What new precedent can lead to? So anyways, look at this, February 11, and again, पूरा news भी पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. India 57 others signed Paris Joint Statement on inclusive, sustainable AI. US and UK abstained from signing the statement. ये दे रखा है, न्यूज़ में भी दे रखा है। सो द आंसर हियर इज वन ओनली। बट नोइंग अबाउट दिस एंटायर ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स, अब यहाँ पे अगर आप रॉट लर्निंग करोगे वर्सेज अगर आपको पॉलिटिक्स पता है कि क्या चल रहा है, it's more than enough and you'll immediately know that second statement is not correct. Answer will be one only. So the point I'm trying to make here is that be holistic in your preparation. Do not prepare topics in isolation. That in this case, even though it is about AI, it is directly linked to the global politics which is happening, right? Even though this is again not an easy question at all, but एक चीज clear है. Look at the statements. ये assertion reason question है. Assertion region में you have lot of ways to get the answer correct. Some rare earth elements are used in manufacture of flat television screens and computer monitors. Some rare earth elements have phosphorescent property. अब यहाँ पे इकलौता difficult part जो ये है वो phosphorescent word का meaning आपको पता होना चाहिए. Phosphor, PHOR, literally means anything which has luminescent property. और it comes from again phosphorus and उसका simple सा कारण है phosphorus इतना chemically reactive है that as it absorbs light during evening it will start releasing light and it will produce, you can see that light. जैसे I remember as a child I am from Bihar और हमारे यहाँ मानते हैं कि लुक देवी है, there is some goddess which is releasing light, that it is, don't go near it. But now we know that it is nothing but phosphorus. So the word phosphor and phosphorescence comes from phosphorus. But phosphorescence simply means that something which has luminescent property. That's something which can, as it absorbs light, some of the atoms and molecules go to high energy state, and when they come back to lower energy state, it can release light, and particularly it can release visible light. So if you know the meaning of this, then you immediately know that either both should be correct or both should not be correct. But there is no option where both are not correct given. So not only both are correct, statement 2 should also be the correct explanation of statement 1. Answer will be A. तो ये factual नहीं है, ये question जो है बिल्कुल ही factual नहीं है. This is a proper reasoning based question. The only thing is that ideally you should know, of course, the meaning of this word phosphorescent property, that it is nothing but luminescent. That's something which can emit light, that as it absorbs light, after absorption it can emit light. So first is true, yes, rare earth elements have unique electrical and magnetic properties, and as a result they have applications across so many domains. जितने भी modern sophisticated electronics हैं, rare earth elements have applications there. There is a current affairs basis to this question, that a lot of global politics is happening with respect to chips. पढ़ा होगा आपने न्यूज़ में, चाइना यूएस का अपना खुद का इशू चल रहा है. And US, for example, is blocking any companies which is allowing sophisticated chips to be developed by China. And US का खुद का अपना जो tariff war चल रहा है China से, and how China has retaliated because China controls the global supply of rare earth. So they are saying that we are going to block supply of rare earth. So rare earths have been in news because of what is happening with respect to US and China. तो एक current affairs basis है इसका, although ये part नहीं पूछा है, rare earth के बारे में पूछ लिया है. So both are correct and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. Answer here is A. So this is a proper reasoning based question. These are the rare earth elements. They have, collectively we call this lanthanide group, and two of them which do not belong to lanthanide group, but they exhibit very similar chemical property, and yttrium. So these two are also considered rare earth elements. And because of this unique electrical and magnetic property, they have applications across many electronic devices. When you prima facie see this question, this is the next question of, could have been categorized in infrastructure also, but because of the word RFID and Kavach, which is a technological plan, we have categorized this in science and tech. When you look at prima facie this question, you immediately become scared and you can think that let's not attempt this. And that is why I often ask students that please read the question carefully and look at the options, how options are arranged. Question क्या है? Not correct. एक लौता क्वेश्चन पूछा है पूरे पेपर में जहाँ पे not correct पूछा है. That which of the statements are not correct. And I know the way options are arranged that either all three of them are not correct or only one is not correct. And if I know particularly that only one is not correct, which essentially means that it is correct, then I have my answer. So if I know in this, अगर same question रहता, मान लो which of these statements given above is are correct, and इस तरीके का option रहता, so I know that either one is incorrect or all of them are correct. यहाँ पे I know that either one is correct or all of them are incorrect. So I have to find correct statement, and third is a very simple correct statement. That कवच का जो underlying technology है वो RFID है, radio frequency identification technology है. The same technology which we are also are using, for example, in toll collection at toll booths. The same technology, you have RFID tags embedded on the tracks at important locations, particularly around brakes, around lights. And then you have a lot of trains which were equipped with those RFID. The moment a train which had to not cross a light but it did, first scenario. Second scenario, if on the same track, two trains in the opposite direction, in all these cases, because it is using radio frequency travels with 3 lakh km per second with speed of light, the devices will send information. And the best part here is that it then does not rely upon some manual braking. It is integrated with the automated braking system. So the moment RFID becomes activated and the moment this information is exchanged, that a light signal has been broken or two trains are on the same track, automatically brakes will be applied and train will come to a halt. And the goal here is to, of course, avoid and prevent accidents. So if I know that third is correct, I know my answer is first and second. First, frankly, बहुत ही घटिया statement है, because I do not expect such घटिया statement from UPSC. ये 2030 है, यहाँ पे कोई गलत नहीं है. Indian Railway plan prepared to create a future-ready railway system, ये ठीक है. जो गलत part है वो 2030 है, not 2028 है. Second, चलो फिर भी ये पता होना चाहिए that कवच is indigenous. We have not developed कवच with collaboration with any country. कवच is indigenous, right? But third is correct, and the moment I know third to be correct, I know that first and second are not correct. My answer is A here. Sorry? Yeah. Only कहाँ word दे रखा है? Only कहाँ दे रखा है? I thought about that. Only नहीं दे रखा. No. अगर only वाले statement है, he's saying is that the word only is not mentioned. This statement as a standalone statement is correct statement. As a standalone statement, it is a correct statement. That कवच उस हिसाब से तो फिर RFID tags train में भी हैं. Forget about the track. जब तक ट्रेन में नहीं हो कुछ रीडर, तब तक तो काम ही नहीं करेगा पूरा सिस्टम. सो द इंटायर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ऑल्सो इन्वॉल्व्स, you have this entire system involves even trains. That is not mentioned here, right? So if I read this statement as a standalone statement, it is perfectly correct, and hence answer here is 1 and 2, which are not correct here. ये सब कुछ न्यूज़ में था. हिंदू का पूरा एक एक्सप्लेनर था, although 2023 का है ये, so 2 साल पुराना है. What is कवच? And the same also has explained, same also mentions that it has been developed indigenously rather than any collaboration with any country. And the same thing was also in news last year. कवच radio frequency identification tags placed in the tracks. तो ये last year भी ये था news में. And it has always remained whenever you have accident, which happens every year. So this will be into news. And there will be, of course, criticism, and there should be criticism that we are not upgrading our railway as fast as we should. Consider the following space missions: Axiom 4, SpaceX, and GAGAN. This is an easy question. How many of these space missions given above encourage and support microgravity research? First is part of Axiom is a private company based out of USA. It often collaborates with International Space Station and does microgravity research. But this was a news, इस साल का news है, that it collaborated with ISRO for GAGAN mission for microgravity research. And it was 4th such mission, hence the name Axiom 4. And SpaceX was in news a lot, of course, space docking experiment. And GAGAN, we all know that the plan is to go to low Earth orbit. And we are doing a lot of experiments with respect to GAGAN. So answer here should be all the 3. लास्ट ईयर यूपीएससी ने इतना ग्लेरिंग मिस्टेक किया हुआ है ना आंसर की में, देखा होगा आपने. जो हाइड्रोजेल वाला क्वेश्चन है, आई डू नॉट एग्री टू द आंसर यूपीएससी गेव, एंड ऑल्सो ऑफ कोर्स दैट पॉलिटी क्वेश्चन, दैट इज सच अ ब्लंडर, दैट जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में दे रखा है वो आपने गलत किया हुआ है, आर्टिकल 112 वाला जो क्वेश्चन था। तो पता है क्या, मुझे इस क्वेश्चन में बस ये डर लग रहा है दैट इफ दे हैव पिक्ड दिस only and only from this article of ISRO, Indian Microgravity Research Portfolio and Upcoming Axiom Formation, and it mentions गगनयान, then कहीं ऐसा ना हो उनको लगे कि नहीं नहीं स्पेडेक्स तो चलो डॉकिंग है, तो माइक्रोग्राविटी रिसर्च क्यों होगा, इसको नहीं करते हैं। सो इतना मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस अभी यूपीएससी में कम है that I will not be surprised if they gave this answer only 2. But anyways, the answer should be all the 3. Answer should be C here. That all 3 of them, they aim to encourage and support microgravity research. This is another very factual question. And मैं जब खुद क्लास में पढ़ाता हूँ तो I will tell that remember supersonic aircrafts. But I'll never ask students that go and remember all of the other type of craft. बहुत सारे हैं, कितना आप याद रखोगे? I say this to students, but UPSC ने पूछ लिया, right? कि go and remember the other aircrafts also, which are into news. The only option which was simpler here is second. The supersonic combat aircraft, you know, they are very few. You can count them, and you should know. You should know about Rafale, MiG. You should know about Mirage, all of that. So Tejas, in fact, you should know about all of the supersonic combat aircraft. So maybe second you know is not correct, but you do not know if first is correct or not, third is correct or not. Both first and third are correct here. Answer is only 2. And all of them have been in news. ऐसा नहीं है कि random है. All of them have been in news. Dornier, which is developed by HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, this was in news. IL-76, I think we have collaborated with some. This was also in news. It was halted. Its operation was halted. And this has been developed by Boeing C-7 Global Master 3, which was delivered to Indian Air Force. So first and third are correct. Second is not correct. But this is a difficult question. I will be very careful in attempting if I do not know those facts. Answer will be only 2. A similar theme, so defense has become, of course, a very popular theme by UPSC in last few years. And you can see this question here. How many of the above are considered 5th generation fighter aircraft, right? Okay, done. Any doubt in any question, any questions if you have anywhere? If you do have any questions, you can send me a mail. And all the best, guys.